Book 17. The Beggar at the Manor. When the young dawn came bright into the east, spreading her fingertips of rose, Telemachus, the king's son, tied on his rawhide sandals and took the lance that bore his hand grip. Burning to be away, and on the path to town, he told the swineherd, "Uncle, the truth is I must go down myself into the city. Mother must see me there, with her own eyes, or she will weep and feel forsaken still, and will not set her mind at rest. Your job will be to lead this poor man down to beg. Some householder may want to dole him out and loaf a pint. I have my own troubles. Am I to care for every last man who comes? And if he takes it badly, well, so much the worse for him. Plain truth is what I favor." At once Odysseus, the great tactician, spoke up briskly. "Neither would I myself care to be kept here, lad. A beggar man fares better in the town. Let it be said, I am not yet so old I must lay up indoors and mumble aye, aye to a master. Go on then, as you say. My friend can lead me as soon as I have had a bit of fire and when the sun grows warmer. These old rags could be my death, outside on a frosty morning, and the town is distant, so they say." Telemachus with no more words went out, and through the fence and downhill, going fast on the steep footing, nursing woe for the suitors in his heart. Before the manor hall he leaned his lance against a great porch pillar and stepped in across the doorstone. Old Euryclea saw him first, for that day she was covering handsome chairs nearby with clean fleeces. She ran to him at once, tears in her eyes, and other maidservants of the old soldier Odysseus gathered round to greet their prince, kissing his head and shoulders. Quickly then Penelope the wise, tall in her beauty as Artemis or pale gold Aphrodite, appeared from her high chamber and came down to throw her arms around her son. In tears she kissed his head, kissed both his shining eyes, then cried out, and her words flew, "Back with me, Telemachus, more sweet to me than sunlight. I thought I should not see you again, ever. After you took the ship that night to Pylos, against my will, with not a word, you went for news of your dear father. Tell me now of everything you saw." But he made answer, "Mother, not now. You make me weep. My heart already aches. I came near death at sea. You must bathe, first of all, and change your dress, and take your maids to the highest room to pray. Pray and burn offerings to the gods of heaven, that Zeus may put his hand to our revenge. I am off now to bring home from the square a guest, a passenger I had. I sent him yesterday with all my crew to town. Piraeus was to care for him, I said, and keep him well with honor till I came." She caught back the swift words upon her tongue, then softly she withdrew to bathe and dress her body in fresh linen, and make her offerings to the gods of heaven, praying almighty Zeus to put his hand to their revenge. Telemachus had left the hall, taken his lance, and gone with 2 quick hounds at heel into the town, Athena's grace in his long stride making the people gaze as he came near, and suitors gathered, primed with friendly words, despite the deadly plotting in their hearts. But these and all their crowd he kept away from. Next he saw sitting some way off apart Mentor with Antiphus and Halitherses, friends of his father's house in years gone by. Near these men he sat down and told his tale under their questioning. His crewman, young Piraeus, guided through town, meanwhile into the square, the Argive exile, Theoclymenos. Telemachus lost no time in moving toward him, but first Piraeus had his say. "Telemachus, you must send maids to me at once, and let me turn over to you those gifts from Menelaus." The prince had pondered it and said, "Piraeus, none of us knows how this affair will end. Say one day our fine suitors, without warning, draw upon me, kill me in our hall, and parcel out my patrimony. I wish you, and no one of them, to have those things. But if my hour comes, if I could bring down bloody death on all that crew, you will rejoice to send my gifts to me, and so will I rejoice." Then he departed, leading his guest, the lonely stranger, home. Over chairbacks and hall they dropped their mantles and passed into the polished tubs, where maids poured out warm baths for them, anointed them, and pulled fresh tunics, fleecy cloaks around them. Soon they were seated at their ease in hall. A maid came by to tip a golden jug over their fingers into a silver bowl, and draw a gleaming table up beside them. The larder mistress brought her tray of loaves and savories, dispensing each. In silence across the hall, beside a pillar, propped in a long chair, Telemachus's mother spun a fine wool yarn. The young men's hands went out upon the good things placed before them, and only when their hunger and thirst were gone did she look up and say, "Telemachus, what am I to do now? Return alone and lie again on my forsaken bed, sodden how often with my weeping since that day when Odysseus put to sea to join the Atridae before Troy? Could you not tell me, before the suitors fill our house, what news you have of his return?" He answered, "Now that you ask a second time, dear mother, here is the truth. We went ashore at Pylos to Nestor, lord and guardian of the West, who gave me welcome in his towering hall. So kind he was, he might have been my father and I his long-lost son. So truly kind, taking me in with his own honored sons. But as to Odysseus' bitter fate, living or dead, he had no news at all, from anyone on earth, he said. He sent me overland in a strong chariot to Atreus' son, the captain Menelaus, and I saw Helen there, for whom the Argives fought, and the Trojans fought, as the gods willed. The Menelaus of the great war cry asked me my errand in that ancient land of Lacedaemon, so I told our story, and in reply he burst out, "Intolerable! That feeble men, unfit as those men are, should think to lie in that great captain's bed, fawns in the lion's lair. As if a doe put down her litter of sucklings there, while she sniffed at the glen or grazed a grassy hollow. Ha! Then the Lord returns to his own bed and deals out wretched doom on both alike. So will Odysseus deal out doom on these. O Father Zeus, Athena, and Apollo, I pray he comes as once he was in Lesbos, when he stood up to wrestle Philomelides, champion and island king, and smashed him down. How the Achaeans cheered. If that Odysseus could meet the suitors, they'd have a quick reply, a stunning dowry. Now for your questions, let me come to the point. I would not misreport it for you. Let me tell you what the ancient of the sea, that infallible seer, told me. On an island your father lies and grieves. The ancient saw him held by a nymph, Calypso, in her hall. No means of sailing home remained to him, no ship with oars, and no ship's company to pull him on the broad back of the sea. I had this from the Lord Marshal Menelaus, and when my errand in that place was done, I left for home. A fair breeze from the gods brought me swiftly back to our dear island." The boy's tale made her heart stir in her breast, but this was not all. Mother and son now heard Theoclymenos, the diviner, say, "He does not see it clear. O gentle lady, wife of Odysseus Laertiades, listen to me. I can reveal this thing. Zeus be my witness, and the table set for strangers in the hearth to which I have come. The Lord Odysseus, I tell you, is present now, already, on this island. Quartered somewhere or going about, he knows what evil is afoot. He has it in him to bring a black hour on the suitors. Yesterday, still at the ship, I saw this in a portent. I read the sign aloud. I told Telemachus." The prudent queen, for her part, said, "Stranger, if only this came true, our love would go to you with many gifts. Aye, every man who passed would call you happy." So ran the talk between these three. Meanwhile, swaggering before Odysseus' hall, the suitors were competing at the discus throw and javelin on the level measured field. But when the dinner hour drew on, and beasts were being driven from the fields to slaughter, as beasts were every day, Medon spoke out. Medon the crier, whom the suitors liked, he took his meat beside them. "Men," he said, "each one has had his work out and its pleasure. Come into hall now. Time to make our feast. Are discus throws more admirable than a roast when the proper hour comes?" At this reminder, they all broke up their games and trailed away into the gracious timbered hall. There, first, they dropped their cloaks on chairs. Then came their ritual, putting great rams and fat goats to the knife, pigs and a cow, too. So they made their feast. During these hours, Odysseus and the swineherd were on their way out of the hills to town. The forester had got them started, saying, "Friend, you have hopes, I know, of your adventure into the heart of town today. My lord wishes it so, not I. No, I should rather you stood by here as guardian of our steading. But I owe reverence to my prince, and fear he'll make my ears burn later if I fail. A master's tongue is a rough edge. Off we go. Part of the day is past. Nightfall will be early, and colder, too." Odysseus, who had it all timed in his head, replied, "I know as well as you do. Let's move on. You lead the way, the whole way. Have you got a staff, a lopped stick, you can let me use to put my weight on when I slip? This path is hard going," they said. Over his shoulders he slung his patched-up knapsack, an old bundle tied with twine. Eumaeus found a stick for him, the kind he wanted, and the two set out, leaving the boys and dogs to guard the place. In this way, good Eumaeus led his lord down to the city. And it seemed to him he led an old outcast, a beggar man, leaning most painfully upon a stick, his poor cloak all in tatters looped about him. Down by the stony trail they made their way as far as Clearwater, not far from town, a spring house where the people filled their jars. Ithacus, Neretos, and Polyctor built it, and round it on the humid ground a grove, a circular wood of poplars grew. Ice-cold in runnels from a high rock ran the spring, and over it there stood an altar stone to the cool nymphs, where all men going by laid offerings. Well, here the son of Dolios crossed their path, Melanthios. He was driving a string of choice goats for the evening meal, with 2 goatherds beside him, and no sooner had he laid eyes upon the wayfarers than he began to growl and taunt them both so grossly that Odysseus' heart grew hot. "Here comes one scurvy type leading another. God pairs them off together every time. Swineherd, where are you taking your new pig, that stinking beggar there, liquor of pots? How many doorposts has he rubbed his back on whining for garbage, where a noble guest would rate a cauldron or a sword? Hand him over to me. I'll make a farmhand of him, a stall scraper, a fodder carrier. Whey for drink will put good muscle on his shank. No chance. He learned his dodges long ago. No honest sweat. He'd rather tramp the country begging to keep his hoggish belly full. Well, I could tell you this for sure. In King Odysseus' hall, if he goes there, footstools will fly around his head. Good shots from strong hands. Back inside, his ribs will catch it on the way out. And like a drunken fool, he kicked at Odysseus' hip as he passed by. Not even jogged off stride or off the trail, the Lord Odysseus walked along, debating inwardly whether to whirl and beat the life out of this fellow with his stick, or toss him, brain him on the stony ground. Then he controlled himself and bore it quietly, not so the swineherd. Seeing the man before him, he raised his arms and cried, "Nymphs of the spring, daughters of Zeus, if ever Odysseus burnt you with thigh bone and rich fat, a ram's or kid's thigh bone, hear me, grant my prayer. Let our true Lord come back. Let heaven bring him to rid the earth of these fine courtly ways Melanthios picks up around the town. All wine and wind, bad shepherds ruin flocks." Melanthios the goatherd answered, "Bless me, the dog can snap. How he goes on. Some day I'll take him in a slave ship overseas and trade him for a herd. Old Silverbow Apollo, if he shot clean through Telemachus and Hall today, what luck. Or let the suitors cut him down. Odysseus died at sea. No coming home for him." He flung this out and left the two behind to come on slowly, while he went hurrying to the king's hall. There he slipped in and sat among the suitors, beside the one he doted on, Eurymachus. Then working servants helped him to his meat, and the mistress of the larder gave him bread. Reaching the gate, Odysseus and the forester halted and stood outside, for harp notes came around them rippling on the air, as Phemios picked out a song. Odysseus caught his companion's arm and said, "My friend, here is the beautiful place. Who could mistake it? Here is Odysseus' hall. No hall like this. See how one chamber grows out of another? See how the court is tight with wall and coping? No man at arms could break this gateway down. Your banqueting young lords are here in force, I gather, from the fumes of mutton roasting and strum of harping which the gods appoint sweet friend of feasts." And oh, my swineherd, you replied. That was quick recognition, but you are no numbskull, in this or anything. Now we must plan this action. Will you take leave of me here, and go ahead alone to make your entrance now among the suitors? Or do you choose to wait? Let me go forward and go in first. Do not delay too long. Someone might find you skulking here outside to take a club to you, or heave a lance. Bear this in mind, I say. The patient hero Odysseus answered, "Just what I was thinking. You go in first, and leave me here a little. But as for blows and missiles, I am no tyro at these things. I learned to keep my head in hardship, years of war and years at sea. Let this new trial come. The cruel belly, can you hide its ache? How many bitter days it brings. Long ships with good stout planks athwart. Would fighters rig them to ride the barren sea except for hunger? Sea-wolves, woe to their enemies." While he spoke, an old hound lying near pricked up his ears and lifted up his muzzle. This was Argos, trained as a puppy by Odysseus, but never taken on a hunt before his master sailed for Troy. The young men afterward hunted wild goats with him, and hare and deer, but he had grown old in his master's absence. Treated as rubbish now, he lay at last upon a mass of dung before the gates. Manure of mules and cows, piled there until field hands could spread it on the king's estate. Abandoned there and half destroyed with flies, old Argos lay. But when he knew he heard Odysseus' voice nearby, he did his best to wag his tail, nose down, with flattened ears, having no strength to move nearer his master. And the man looked away, wiping a salt tear from his cheek, but he hid this from Eumaeus. Then he said, "I marvel that they leave this hound to lie here on the dung pile. He would have been a fine dog from the look of him, though I can't say as to his power and speed when he was young. You find the same good build in house dogs. Table dogs landowners keep all for style." And you replied, Eumaeus, "A hunter owned him, but the man is dead in some far place. If this old hound could show the form he had when Lord Odysseus left him, going to Troy, you'd see him swift and strong. He never shrank from any savage thing he'd brought to bay in the deep woods. On the scent no other dog kept up with him. Now misery has him in leash. His owner died abroad, and here the women slaves will take no care of him. You know how servants are. Without a master, they have no will to labor or excel. For Zeus, who views the wide world, takes away half the manhood of a man. That day he goes into captivity and slavery." Eumaeus crossed the court and went straight forward into the Megaron among the suitors. But death and darkness in that instant closed the eyes of Argos, who had seen his master Odysseus, after 20 years. Long before anyone else, Telemachus caught sight of the grey woodsman coming from the door and called him over with a quick jerk of his head. Eumaeus's narrowed eyes made out an empty bench beside the one the carver used, that servant who had no respite, carving for the suitors. This bench he took possession of and placed it across the table from Telemachus for his own use. Then the two men were served cuts from a roast and bread from a bread basket. At no long interval, Odysseus came through his own doorway as a mendicant, humped like a bundle of rags over his stick. He settled on the inner ash wood sill, leaning against the door jamb, cypress timber the skilled carpenter planed years ago and set up with a plumb line. Now Telemachus took an entire loaf and a double handful of roast meat. Then he said to the forester, "Give these to the stranger there, but tell him to go among the suitors on his own. He may beg all he wants. This hanging back is no asset to a hungry man." The swineherd rose at once, crossed to the door, and halted by Odysseus. "Friend," he said, "Telemachus is pleased to give you these, but he commands you to approach the suitors. You may ask all you want from them. He adds, your shyness is no asset to a beggar." The great tactician, lifting up his eyes, cried, "Zeus aloft, a blessing on Telemachus, that all things come to pass as he desires." Pawns held out in the beggar's gesture. He received the bread and meat and put it down before him on his knapsack, lowly table. Then he fell to, devouring it. Meanwhile the harper in the great room sang a song. Not till the man was fed did the sweet harper end his singing, whereupon the company made the walls ring again with talk. Unseen, Athena took her place beside Odysseus, whispering in his ear, "Yes, try the suitors. You may collect a few more loaves and learn who are the decent lads and who are vicious, although not one can be excused from death." So he appealed to them, one after another, going from left to right with open palm, as though his lifetime had been spent in beggary. And they gave bread for pity, wondering though at the strange man. Who could this beggar be? Where did he come from? Each would ask his neighbor, till in their midst the goatherd Melanthios raised his voice. "Hear just a word from me, my lords who court our illustrious queen. This man, this foreigner, I saw him on the road. The swineherd here was leading him this way. Who, what, or whence he claims to be, I could not say for sure." At this, Antinous turned on the swineherd brutally, saying, "You famous breeder of pigs, why bring this fellow here? Are we not plagued enough with beggars, foragers, and such rats? You find the company too slow at eating up your lord's estate, is that it? So you call this scarecrow in?" The forester replied, "Antinous, well born you are, but that was not well said. Who would call in a foreigner, unless an artisan with skill to serve the realm, a healer, or a prophet, or a builder, or one whose harp and song might give us joy? All these are sought for in the endless earth. But when have beggars come by invitation? Who puts a field mouse in his granary? My lord, you are a hard man, and you always were, more so than others of this company. Hard on all Odysseus' people and on me. But this I can forget as long as Penelope lives on, the wise and tender mistress of this hall, as long as Prince Telemachus." But he broke off at a look from Telemachus, who said, "Be still. Spare me a long-drawn answer to this gentleman. With his unpleasantness, he will forever make strife where he can and goad the others on." He turned and spoke out clearly to Antinous. "What fatherly concern you show me. Frighten this unknown fellow, would you, from my hall with words that promise blows? May God forbid it. Give him a loaf. Am I a niggard? No, I call on you to give, and spare your qualms as to my mother's loss, or anyone's, not that in truth you have such care at heart. Your heart is all in feeding, not in giving." Antinous replied, "What high and mighty talk, Telemachus? No holding you. If every suitor gave what I may give him, he could be kept for months, kept out of sight." He reached under the table for the footstool his shining feet had rested on, and this he held up so that all could see his gift. But all the rest gave alms, enough to fill the beggar's pack with bread and roast meat. So it looked as though Odysseus had had his taste of what these men were like, and could return scot-free to his own doorway. But halting now before Antinous, he made a little speech to him. Said he, "Give a mite, friend. I would not say myself you are the worst man of the young Achaeans, the noblest, rather, kingly by your look. Therefore you'll give more bread than others do. Let me speak well of you as I pass on over the boundless earth. I too, you know, had fortune once, lived well, stood well with men, and gave alms often to poor wanderers like this one that you see. Aye, to all sorts, no matter in what dire want. I owned servants, many, God knows, and all the rest that goes with being prosperous, as they say, but Zeus the son of Cronos brought me down. No telling why he would have it, but he made me go to Egypt with a company of rovers, a long sail to the south, for my undoing. Up the broad Nile and into the river bank I brought my dipping squadron. There indeed I told the men to stand guard at the ships. I sent patrols out. out to rising ground. But reckless greed carried my crews away to plunder the Egyptian farms. They bore off wives and children, killed what men they found. The news ran on the wind to the city, a night cry. At sunrise brought both infantry and horsemen, filling the river plain with dazzle of bronze. Then Zeus, lord of lightning, threw my men into a blind panic. No one dared stand against that host closing around us. Their scything weapons left our dead in piles, but some they took alive into forced labor, myself among them. And they gave me then to one Demeter, a traveler, son of Iosus, who ruled at Cyprus. He conveyed me there from that place, working northward miserably. But here Antinous broke in, shouting, God, what evil wind blew in this pest? Get over, stand in the passage. Nudge my table, will you? Egyptian whips are sweet to what you'll come to here, you nosing rat, making your pitch to everyone. These men have bread to throw away on you because it is not theirs. Who cares? Who spares another's food when he has more than plenty? With guile, Odysseus drew away, then said, A pity that you have more looks than heart. You'd grudge a pinch of salt from your own larder to your own handyman. You sit here, fat on others' meat, and cannot bring yourself to rummage out a crust of bread for me. Then anger made Antinous' heart beat hard, and glowering under his brows he said, Now, you think you'll shuffle off and get away after that impudence? Oh, no, you don't. The stool he let fly hit the man's right shoulder, on the packed muscle under the shoulder blade, like solid rock for all the effect one saw. Odysseus only shook his head, containing thoughts of bloody work as he walked on, then sat and dropped his loaded bag again upon the door-sill. Facing the whole crowd, he said, and eyed them all, One word only, my lords and suitors of the famous queen. One thing I have to say. There is no pain, no burden for the heart when blows come to a man, and he defending his own cattle, his own cows and lambs. Here it was otherwise. Antinous hit me for being driven on by hunger. How many bitter seas men cross for hunger? If beggars interest the gods, if there are furies pent in the dark to avenge a poor man's wrong, then may Antinous meet his death before his wedding day. Then said Eupeithes' son, Antinous, Enough! Eat and be quiet where you are, or shamble elsewhere, unless you want these lads to stop your mouth pulling you by the heels, or hands and feet, over the whole floor till your back is peeled. But now the rest were mortified, and someone spoke from the crowd of young bucks to rebuke him. A poor show that, hitting this famished tramp. Bad business if he happened to be a god. You know they go in foreign guise, the gods do, looking like strangers, turning up in towns and settlements to keep an eye on manners, good or bad. But at this notion Antinous only shrugged. Telemachus, after the blow his father bore, sat still without a tear, though his heart felt the blow. Slowly he shook his head from side to side, containing murderous thoughts. Penelope on the higher level of her room had heard the blow, and knew who gave it. Now she murmured, Would God you could be hit yourself, Antinous, hit by Apollo's bowshot. And Eurynome, her housekeeper, put in, He and no other? If all we pray for came to pass, not one would live till dawn. Her gentle mistress said, Oh, Nan, they are a bad lot. They intend ruin for us all. But Antinous appears a blacker-hearted hound than any. Here is a poor man come, a wanderer, driven by want to beg his bread, and everyone in hall gave bits to cram his bag. Only Antinous threw a stool and banged his shoulder. So she described it, sitting in her chamber among her maids, while her true lord was eating. Then she called in the forester and said, Go to that man on my behalf, Eumaeus, and send him here so I can greet and question him. Abroad in the great world he may have heard rumors about Odysseus, may have known him. Then you replied, O swineherd, Ah, my queen, if these Achaean sprigs would hush their babble, the man could tell you tales to charm your heart. 3 days and nights I kept him in my hut. He came straight off a ship, you know, to me. There was no end to what he made me hear of his hard roving, and I listened, eyes upon him as a man drinks in a tale a minstrel sings, a minstrel taught by heaven to touch the hearts of men. At such a song the listener becomes rapt and still. Just so I found myself enchanted by this man. He claims an old tie with Odysseus, too. In his home country, the Minoan land of Crete. From Crete he came, a rolling stone washed by the gales of life this way and that to our own beach. If he could be believed, he has news of Odysseus near at hand, alive, in the rich country of Thesprotia, bringing a massive treasure home. Then wise Penelope said again, Go call him, let him come here, let him tell that tale again for my own ears. Our friends can drink their cups outside or stay in hall, being so carefree. And why not? Their stores lie intact in their homes, both food and drink, with only servants left to take a little. But these men spend their days around our house, killing our beeves, our fat goats, and our sheep, carousing, drinking up our good dark wine, sparing nothing, squandering everything. No champion like Odysseus takes our part. If he comes again, no falcon ever struck more suddenly than he will, with his son to avenge this outrage. The great hall below at this point rang with a tremendous sneeze, ka-choo, from Telemachus, like an acclamation, and laughter seized Penelope. Then quickly, lucidly, she went on. Go call the stranger straight to me. Did you hear that, Eumaeus? My son's thundering sneeze at what I said. May death come of a sudden so. May death relieve us clean as that of all the suitors. Let me add one thing. Do not overlook it. If I could see this man has told the truth, I promise him a warm new cloak and tunic. With all this in his head, the forester went down the hall and halted near the beggar, saying aloud, Good father, you are called by the wise mother of Telemachus, Penelope. The queen, despite her troubles, is moved by a desire to hear your tales about her lord, and if she finds them true, she'll see you clothed in what you need, a cloak and a fresh tunic. You may have your belly full each day you go about this realm begging, for all may give and all they wish. Now said Odysseus, the old soldier, Friend, I wish this instant I could tell my facts to the wise daughter of Icarios, Penelope, and I have much to tell about her husband. We went through much together. But just now this hard crowd worries me. They are, you said, infamous to the very rim of heaven for violent acts. And here just now this fellow gave me a bruise. What had I done to him? But who would lift a hand for me? Telemachus? Anyone else? No. Bid the queen be patient. Let her remain till sundown in her room, and then, if she will seat me near the fire, inquire tonight about her lord's return. My rags are sorry cover, you know that. I showed my sad condition first to you. The woodsman heard him out, and then returned, but the queen met him on her threshold, crying, Have you not brought him? Why? What is he thinking? Has he some fear of overstepping? Shy about these inner rooms, a hangdog beggar? To this you answered, friend Eumaeus, No. He reasons as another might, and well, not to tempt any swordplay from these drunkards. Be patient, wait, he says, till darkness falls. And, oh my queen, for you too that is better. Better to be alone with him and question him and hear him out. Penelope replied, He is no fool. He sees how we could be. Never were mortal men like these for bullying and brainless arrogance. Thus she accepted what had been proposed, so we went back into the crowd. He joined Telemachus and said at once in whispers, his head bent so that no one else might hear, Dear prince, I must go home to keep good watch on hut and swine, and look to my own affairs. Everything here is in your hands. Consider your own safety before the rest. Take care not to get hurt. Many are dangerous here. May Zeus destroy them first before we suffer. Telemachus said, Your wish is mine, uncle. Go when your meal is finished. Then come back at dawn and bring good victims for a slaughter. Everything here is in my hands indeed, and in the disposition of the gods. Taking his seat on the smooth bench again, Eumaeus ate and drank his fill, then rose to climb the mountain trail back to his swine, leaving the Megaron and court behind him crowded with banqueters. These had their joy of dance and song as day waned into evening.